One of the things that was kind of interesting to me this past week, and I have this happen. So I think a lot of times as GMs, we often feel like, oh my God, my friends are coming over and I totally don't have anything ready. I need to spend a bunch of time. I actually had a patron who posted a question. I'll probably be talking about it in a future episode, where he said he spent 24 hours a week preparing one session of his game, which is like a 4-hour session. That seemed like a lot of time focused on spending a session. In the original Lazy Dungeon Master, I offered an approach that said you could do it in 15 minutes. That's probably a little aggressive. 15 minutes is hard. But a half hour, I have definitely prepped sessions in a half an hour. And certainly I think an hour is often enough time to prep a 4-hour session, depending on the game, depending on what you're doing, depending on how much homework you have to do. I don't think an hour is out of hand. But one of the things that often makes me feel good about a game, I always had that pre-game nervousness. Oh my God, I'm not ready. I don't have what I need. The game is going to fall flat. I don't know where we're going or what we should be doing or all of this stuff. We all have that kind of doubt, I think. It's like performance anxiety, right? We're worried about being in front of our friends and offering something that is going to be fun for them. And we want it to be good. And it makes our head sort of spiral out of control. But one of the things that really helps me get my head around it is just sitting back and really thinking about what the bare minimum is that I need to run a session of a game. Like, what do you really need? And one of the types of games that I love running more than everything else is dungeons. I love running dungeons. And I love running dungeons because they are clear and focused. You have boundaries. You know where they're going. You know, it's really that sandbox kind of game. You don't have to worry about like, oh, if they take one path or another path or which part of the city are they going to go to or anything like that. Dungeons they're refined in a way because of like the flowchart nature of a dungeon that there's only so many directions and paths that they can take. They fit really well. So I tend to really enjoy prepping dungeon adventures. And when you think about like, well, what do you need in order to run an adventure like that? If you're really like looking at all of the material that you've got and you're saying, what do I really need? And you know, the steps from Return to the Lazy Dungeon Master, the 8 steps, are kind of designed around that idea of what you really need. But if you're going to refine it down to, oh my God, I really just, you know, friends are coming over and I've got to have something ready. What do I need? It really feels like the first thing you need is, where is this game going to start? What's going to happen? That's step 2 of the 8 steps of Return to the Lazy Dungeon Master. But that idea of like the game has to start somewhere. Something has to happen. Something has to draw the players out of the world and into this new one and get them started. Maybe it's an adventure hook. A very simple one is an NPC arrives and says, hey, I need help with this thing. I need you to recover this MacGuffin. I need you to go save my brothers who got lost in the sewers. Whatever. I want you to recover an old mysterious book before an evil cult gets it. You know, having that strong start be the hook for the adventure is a really good, easy approach. And you can go with just a format like this. An NPC needs the characters to perform a job at a location. Very, very simple. I need you to go to a place to get a thing. If your players are bought in at all, they'll grab on and they'll go. And so that's probably the first thing. Then the second thing you need is the location itself. Where are they going to go? And what does that place look like? And for me, the easiest thing to do for this is to jump over to DysonLogos.com, DysonLogos.blog, click on maps, and he's got 1,100 maps available for all different kinds of locations, all different kinds of places that you can see. And what I tend to do is I scroll through until I find the first map that makes sense for the situation that I've got. Lots of different maps that are available. You can even go and like spend, if you wanted to, this is not the easy thing to do, but one thing you could do is just go on your desktop computer and scan through them. And every time you find a map you like, go save it in a file folder. Get 50 or 60 of them. Get a whole bunch of them. If you have a good pile of maps, think about different kinds of maps: tombs, crypts, caves, towers, keeps, castles. You know, go through a list and have like 2 or 3 different maps for each of the styles of maps that you need, each of the types of locations that you need, and keep those on hand. It's a really good way to just like quickly have a map. And you're really only doing that again, like if for some reason, and God, help me, I hope it never happens, that DysonLogos.blog goes down for some reason, you don't have the maps, have a bunch of local ones that you've saved. So find the first map that you like and you say, yeah, this map will do this. The grotto beneath Lazuni Hill, right? Really solid one. It's got a mixture. I love this map. I think I've used this map. I have used this map and I love this map. It's really, really great. And, you know, this one's a good one because it's a mix of natural caves and a work structure. So the idea is you could have some sort of place that is, you know, work stone, a temple or an old laboratory or whatever that is buried under natural caves. Really, really good, straightforward way to do it. But Dyson's map designs are just excellent. So then you've got your NPC needs the characters to go to a location in order to recover or do a thing. Maybe it's rescue somebody, maybe it's kill somebody, maybe it's steal something, maybe it's find something. You can decide. Lazy DM's Companion and the free sample from the Lazy DM's Companion has a whole list of these kind of quest-like things that you can look at. We'll take a look at those in a second. But now you have your map. And then what you can do, and this is what I did for a game that I ran yesterday, I printed a copy of it out on a sheet of paper. And I had this map printed out on a sheet of paper, and I took a Sharpie, and I just looked at the map and wrote one word that described what was in each of these rooms to give me an idea of what was there. And you might say trapped, a trapped bust, right? Like a mechanical bust of someone's head that breathes out poison gas. You might just say like trapped bust, and you write that here. You might say like stagnant water filled with oozes, and you might, write that down on it. You might say temple to an old forgotten god, right? Or sealed sarcophagi of elder evils, whatever you want. But you basically, for each room, secret treasure hoard, or trapped chests or whatever. And you can just, with a Sharpie, just write in these ideas into each of the locations for it. It shouldn't take you terribly long. You can use random tables to give you ideas if you're not really sure. But if you think about what this place used to be, and you've got those ideas of what, then if you think about what the idea used to be, and you have some tables that give you ideas of what might be in a chamber, the Dungeon Master's Guide, for example, actually has really good lists of these kind of chamber contents. And you can just sort of scan through and say, oh yeah, that makes sense, and I'll drop that in here, and write it on with a Sharpie. So now you have your strong start, which is an NPC comes to the characters and offers them a job in a location. You have the location and what's in the location, which also means the characters can now go in different directions, and you're okay because you've already written down what things are there. Then you want to have like inhabitants. Who's there? And this could be a mixture of NPCs. It could be good guys. It could be bad guys. It could be, shaky guys. That could either be good guys or bad guys. I'm a big fan of like ghosts that aren't immediately hostile. Makes sense for almost any location. It doesn't matter how old it is or whether it's been sealed up for a million years. A ghost could be there that has memories of the place. But then you can just make a list of who are the potential inhabitants for this place. You don't have to associate them with every room. Instead, you could just make a list, probably about 8 different ones. So you don't necessarily need to put all of the NPCs or monsters in particular rooms. A lot of times GMs want to do that. They want to build like a room. They want to put interesting features in the room. They want to set monsters in there, and that becomes an encounter, and then they run it. The problem is, like, because of pacing and beats and stuff like that, or the characters go one direction instead of the other, well, now you got to shift things around. So I find it's easier to have the locations filled out with your little like one named descriptions of what these locations are like or what might be there, and then have a separate list of potential inhabitants. You can almost think of it like a random encounter table, but it doesn't have to be random. You can just go down the list and say, oh, giant rats. I think it's a good time for some giant rats. Or maybe this is a good time for them to meet the wandering ghost. Or maybe this is a good time for the ancient skeleton, the skeletons in the ancient armor to come. That is something that you need. And really, once you have that, you're pretty well set. Now, I, of course, think that having some secrets and clues on hand is also really important. That idea, what are some things the characters can learn while they're here? This could be bits of history about the location. It could be bits of information about the NPCs here. It could be something about the MacGuffin that they're going after, whether it's a hostage that's been picked up or whether it's something else. You can sort of figure out what they would learn when the characters are going through here. I think that list is really handy. And once you have that, you're kind of ready to go. You can use random tables for treasure. I use it all the time. It's really handy to have random tables. And again, like story beats, you can decide like, okay, this is a good time for monetary treasure. This is a good time for a magic item. That gets into one of the other steps from Return, of course. So what we end up with is it kind of looks like the same as the 8 steps from Return to the Lazy Dungeon Master, which is, for me, is not bad because it means I came at it from a different angle. I'm still looking at it from the angle of like, what do I need in order to run my game? And it refines some of them. So instead of just saying like a strong start, I can say, well, the strong start is actually an NPC giving a quest to the characters to go to a location and do a thing. The locations are a map of the location with written tags for each of the rooms so that I know what's in those rooms. I have my list of, and I'm kind of mashing NPCs and monsters together. I have a list of inhabitants that could be good guys or bad guys or whatever, hostile people, not hostile people, wary people, whatever, and they're in that list. I might roll up some random treasure. I could either roll, now with random generators online, it's really easy to just roll up a couple of treasure parcels and drop it into your notes. So you've got it. I find that to be really, really useful. But that's kind of all you need. And once you have that, you know that you generally have enough to make a fun session for your group. So I really think that it's worthwhile. Maybe the steps you have are different than mine. If you think about the bare minimum that you need to have on hand to run a fun game for your group, I'm all ears. You can send me an email. You can leave me a comment. Let me know what you think about what the bare minimum is to be able to run a game.